Welcome back to the Gun Collective podcast. My name is John Patton. A huge thank you to our sponsors tonight, NeoMag, and of course the TGC Patreon supporters for making this show possible. It's the only way we could do this, and I love you guys for supporting us in so many different ways. Tonight we're going to dive into a topic that I think a lot of you guys are going to find interesting. It's kind of not our normal, it's not a very, very broad topic. It's way more specific, but it's very complex. I'm excited to actually get a chance to talk about this in depth with somebody that's directly involved. Tonight, we are joined by a longtime friend of mine. I've actually known this guy for quite a while, Jeremy Dedman of XTech Tactical, and we are going to talk about what it's like to be sued by an industry big guy like Century Arms. Jeremy, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing well, John. Thanks for having me on. Great to see you guys, and thanks for the friendship. Go back to the PowerPoint days, as you and I joked, before I even had a prototype in my hand. So quite the history.
Dude, I think it was when we first physically met, it was at SHOT Show, and you had a backpack full of stuff, and you were just cutting your teeth the rough way, and it's been awesome to watch XTech become something much larger than I think both of us ever would have anticipated.
Sure. No, it's been a heck of a ride, and I got no shame about being the backpack guy for about 5 years. So you got to do what you got to do, right? You got to survive.
The hustle is real, dude. Hey, I want to give a shout out to our live audience over here on YouTube. You guys are awesome, and I want to encourage you guys. This is going to be a very complex thing. So if you have questions regarding what we're talking about, go ahead and slam them in the comment section. Izzy is out there, and he will be feeding us questions. And, of course, if you want to make sure that your question gets answered, if you absolutely must have it answered, use the Super Chat feature over on YouTube. We will try to get to as many of them as possible. But I think the real thing that we need to kind of start with for the audience members that may not know what exactly is going on and who the heck you are, can you explain, maybe not on an existential level, but explain who you are and who XTech is, Jeremy, please.
For sure. Well, XTech, there's 4 of us that founded the company, and we're just average Joes, come from different backgrounds. From an engineering standpoint, more med device, automotive, aerospace than firearms. And the 3 of the 4 gentlemen that started the company, myself included, started doing some work in the firearms market for some well-known companies. And I was told to start doing something with my own ideas or patent some stuff. And it's kind of how XTech came about indirectly. We started doing work for others on the manufacturing development side. And, just kind of fell in love with the industry, if you will, / really found a passion for us. And we've really enjoyed the road.
So that's kind of how you got started. What is XTech now? I mean, you guys have a ton of products. We covered some of the new ones at SHOT Show. For those of you who haven't seen it, go watch that video. But can you kind of give us the lay of the land with who XTech is right now?
Absolutely. So super high level, we're a tech company that happens to make firearms parts.
Okay. All right.
We're all over the place. So, we entered the magazine market with HK mags, then secondly, AK mags. It's typically like way down the list on people's priorities. So, really what XTech's doing is anytime we go into a market segment, our goal is to raise the bar in that segment. Now, not raise the bar and say, hey, it's going to cost, this insane amount of money. We still want to be affordable. So from like an automotive comparison, think of us more as like a Cadillac or a Mercedes, but maybe at times we still bring Toyota options to the market. We're not going to make anything we don't believe in, but we always try and do something a little unique. That could be reinventing the wheel in some ways. And other times it could just be the market's been screaming, like the AK mag, here's what you've been screaming for. We just execute. So that's kind of who XTech is. And, the new laser that's coming out, that's sensor activated. That's kind of, total, the smartphone and the flip phone market. So,
that's certainly not anywhere near a magazine when it comes to a product. You showed me that. You had told me about it before SHOT Show. You said, hey, I got this thing. It's pretty neat. I think you're going to be excited. And I put hands on it. I'm like, wait, you got to be kidding me. So, guys, I'll try to explain it. And Jeremy, correct me if I'm wrong on this. Not only it's a light laser combo that mounts on a any pistol. any pistol with a pick rail, and the way you turn it on, it has buttons, of course, like the standard, oh, I'm going to push this button, it's going to come on. The way you turn it on normally is with a sensor. So you just kind of wave your finger in front of it, whether it's your thumb, index finger, however you choose to do this, has sensors on both sides of the trigger guard pointed towards the rear of the gun. And that's what's used to activate the laser or light. Is that correct?
Correct. So yep, the idea is basically intuitive to your natural motion of that just going to the trigger it's going to be on. If you say instantly there's a target, if you're searching, you're going to use that offhand thumb. So basically as it comes down, you have complete control by just, without ever breaking your grip. So we try to check every box possible. The one on that one, we still have ways to go is the size, so we think we've got a great offering right now for full size firearms. And hopefully in the future, we can keep stringing that down and enter the compact market.
Well, I think it's also possible that the market of mid-size guns could pick up on that as well, because there's a lot of guys, like the guys that carry, your Roland specials and things like that. Those are gigantic guns to carry,
sure.
And I think that could play a role there. Besides the point here tonight, you and I have a long road involved in this. You more than I, of course. You're being sued currently by a company that has, put themselves in a lot of precarious positions over the years when it comes to the quality of their products. But you created an AK magazine, and through doing that, Century Arms, they decided that you were suddenly making something that they own. That's a very high level of looking at it. Can you kind of talk about where this came from? Where did this lawsuit come from? Like what the hell is going on here?
Sure, absolutely. So I guess the precursor to the suit was, as I mentioned, I'm involved in the manufacturing for a lot of companies in the firearm space, but also outside the firearm space. So US Palm, when they set about, the company started, it was, let's see what direction here. So as far as how the lawsuit started, my history with Palm simply started with me being the supplier. So they cut ties with Tango Down, stopped paying Tango Down the royalty they owed them for using Tango Down's designs, and Tango Down never sold those designs. I didn't know that information at the time. So they brought the molds over to me at a company in Tempe, Arizona. I started molding their products. So we were actually physically making the US Palm magazines and grips. Fast forward about a year and a half, 2 years in the relationship with US Palm, I left the company I was with and moved to another company, which is Molded Devices, whom I'm now with. And I know you've met some of the people there, John, but so they moved the molds with me to follow me over. So, to me, that's a big testament about the relationship, right? They chose to leave one manufacturer to another to come with me. So I always tried to help them, always tried to do right by them. There's some friends I still have that, I'd worked for US Palm at different times. And so as that relationship went on with Molded Devices, election cycles coming around, US Palm placed a significant order, and that order was never paid for. Century had been around for about a year and a half at that point. They had come into our plant, Molded Devices plant, and signed in as, they had 4 gentlemen that signed in as Century agents. We still have this evidence. We discovered later on that the 4 gentlemen that came in as Century, in fact, 3 of them were executives for our largest competitor for the plastics manufacturing, injection molding industry. So, what we didn't know when we discovered that is, who's culpable. Is US Palm and Century culpable? Obviously now they're, united. So we were kind of put in a tough spot. So, Molded Devices is ran by, a large board. It's a sizable company. So the first threats in letters from any party was Century to Molded Devices. And, my assumption and on this is, after 4 months of threatening Molded Devices, and it was made very clear to Century that they're not going anywhere. They're not going to bow down to baseless threats.
And let me try and understand this.
Yeah.
Why were they, what basis were they threatening them on? Because we didn't really get into that. So
Sure.
you guys were making the US Palm parts.
Yeah, molded devices was, yes.
Molded devices.
Yeah.
And that relationship kind of fell apart because an order was never paid for.
Correct.
At what point did Century purchase US Palm? Is that after they came into the plant, or is that prior to that? This timeline is quite thick, so I want to try and step by step go through the story with everybody.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, it's so the first time Century came to molded devices was October 4th of 2016.
Okay.
That's the date I refer to. The premise of that was Brandon Finch and Robert Anderson, the owner of US Palm, had reached out to us and said, hey, and we knew about Century kind of looming around, potentially going to be buying US Palm Range magazines. That's the reality of why the Range magazine was created, was for Century to replace the PMag, MOE mag with all their rifle sales. So this wasn't a secret. It was fairly well known in the market. So fast forward from October 2016, those gentlemen came in the building, and we were told it went great. We bought them lunch. We thought they were a customer. We thought, hey, we're in the business of making plastic parts. In that world, you got to be careful not to have a preference. If High Point comes to me and says they want to spend $1 million a year on molding, or if H&K does, we're in the business of making plastic parts, right? That's a different hat for me, where what it does, you like having the fun projects and the premium brands. But anyway, so that's the first time we had a face-to-face interaction with Century. Then things went quiet for some time. The next update would be April 1st, 2017. So now we've got about 8 months, 7 months. And that's when US Palm announced that it ceased their operations. So They said they were suspending all consumer sales on their Facebook page on April 1st, 2017. Ironically, that was April Fool's Day, so their timing was kind of uncomfortable, where a lot of customers thought it was a joke.
And that was that post they put up with that hand coming up out of the ground. Is that right?
This is actually far below this. This is a Breaking Bad theme post or something. I don't remember.
Okay. So this is way before that.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is April 1st, 2017. They weren't saying they were done. They were saying they're stopping all customer sales or consumer sales right now. As from that point on, we had basically this debt accumulating. They're saying they're done, so molded devices went through their legal right of what's called replevin. So replevin applies when the debt, repossession is what a lot of people try and interpret it as, but replevin is actually a different action. So I don't want to play attorney too much, but replevin is when, I have a car of yours, you owe me money, I can prove you owe me money, I give you notice, gets auctioned off, right? You didn't owe me money for the car, you owed me money for something else, right? So they owed money for parts they never paid for. Molded Devices possessed tooling, so they went through replevin. So that's between Molded Devices, a very large company with, well over 600 employees, 8 plants in North America. Now, what I believe to be a bigger company than Century is. So lots of threats from Century to Molded Devices, but at the end of the day, they decided fighting a company that could actually, on face value, fight back wasn't something they were interested in.
So the threats were based on the fact that there was, I guess, misunderstanding. Yeah, it was like a misunderstanding of who actually owned the rights to those.
Well, the tooling
thing. The
so
tooling.
It all started,
okay.
It all started with the tooling. So all the threats to Molded Devices, XTech wasn't listed, wasn't involved in the demand letters. Everything initially was the tooling, which, by the way, Century was, I'm told, was aware of. And so the dispute was between Molded Devices and Century Arms. And those demands began in January of 2018 is when they started being formalized.
Okay.
So
January of 2018, they're still focused on molded devices, threats coming left and right of, you don't own this thing, we don't owe you money or something. I don't know what the exact threats were, but I can assume it was along those lines of, hey, you can't do that. So
it was, yeah, I mean, and I'll try and get a little cleaner here on kind of my timeline. Let me see if I can get this to where it actually shows up how I want it to. So,
and I know, so for the audience out there, Jeremy has attempted to walk me through all of this before, and it is extremely complex. This is an ongoing legal case, and it's important to note that things do change all the time, and that's why I'm trying to clarify for you guys so that we all are on the same page as we talk through this.
So if we jump, this is just kind of looking at my timeline. I'll reiterate a couple things, but let's jump kind of into it. So, the first time Century comes in is October of 2016. That's when 4 people come in as Century. The 2 US Palm owners are there. Turns out 3 of the 4 people that signed into an ITAR FFL facility as Century are actually 3 executives of Molded Devices competitor. So that was October 4th, 2016. April 1st, 2017, US Palm stops taking customer orders. And then obviously Molded Devices is owed a significant amount of money. They see their customer is, potentially misled them about Century coming in. Potentially it's all Century, we don't know. But also we see they're going out of business. They're not taking orders anymore, so how are they going to repay? So they reach out to their attorneys. That's where the replevin action begins. Now, so that's April of 17. Now, May of 17 is relevant because in prior lawsuits that Century had sent to XTech that we'll get to in a little bit, Century references they began due diligence with US Palm in their own words. So there was numerous lawsuits Century's filed against and sent to XTech, not just the one we're dealing with now. So their own words describe that US Palm stops April of 17, Century and Palm start talking May of 17. That's their words directly from them. So June of 2017 is when the formal act of replevin begins, which is basically attorneys are involved. Molded Devices gives US Palm folks notice. They sign that they received the notice. And at that point, actually, the relationship between Molded Devices being, myself involved in that, one of several parties, and US Palm was actually not bad. US Palm offered to help us, introduce us to all their customers, help us get made whole on the debt. There wasn't much hostility. It was kind of one of those make the best of what is where it was then. So that's, again, we're in June of 2017. July of 2017, the founder of US Palm, let's see, is he, sorry folks, 1 second here. I'll see if John's got a technical difficulty here or not.
Oh my goodness.
You okay?
Crazy noises in the background. I had to go investigate. I'm sorry, I had to step away for a second. Okay, so it was May. They step in. June, you guys start replevin, taking back the molds, kind of trying to situate all of that.
Yep.
At what point did the magazine become an XTech thing? Like, where did that start? Was that later, much later? Are we getting there?
We're getting there.
Okay.
We're getting there.
Okay.
So in June, I believe it was June of 17 as well, is when the US Palm name trademark lapsed. So basically the prior owners of US Palm decided it wasn't worth their while to pay $100 per category to keep their name alive. So they let their name die. So that's relevant because that's when Century jumped in. And the first action by Century of any formal action is in August of 2017, Century Arms filed for trademarks on the US Palm name and the US Palm logo. In their own words, they did not buy US Palm until March of 2018.
Okay.
So they took the names through, technically what's a legal process. You can question the ethics of it, but technically there's a legal means that they could file, and US Palm's old guys had to fight for it back. So that's how that all came about. So the way we discovered about the US Palm pending trademarks by Century that were filed in August was we went to NASCW in October of 2017. So right in that phase between like that July, August is technically August 7th, I think, is when the public auction took place. So that's when Molded Devices became the owner of the tools. I was looking as Molded Devices for the right partner for Molded Devices to do something with the project. We spoke with a lot of big names in the AK space. We were looking for someone established. No one was stepping up, and so eventually became a Molded Devices XTech thing. XTech has had Molded Devices do all their molding for several years, and actually, since we started our first product, they're our primary molder, and I've been an employee there for about 3 years now. But they've been good friends of ours. So really, we looked for that perfect fit where we could guarantee someone's going to buy 100,000 mags a year. There's household names. I don't want to bring them into this at this point, but they are willing and ready to testify if it's ever relevant in trial, but it's really not. But it was down market after the Trump election. Not a lot of people had cash, and the US Palm product history had some upside and some downside. It wasn't a clear slam dunk. There's a reason they struggled.
Okay.
So
let's recap again. Let's recap because it gets ever thicker. So you guys at some point, Molded Devices came in and took possession of the tooling. There was no way to kind of resolve the issues. You were trying to figure out the path forward with the US Palm product. How does that work? And at the same time, Century had taken possession or claimed the US Palm name and
logo.
Okay, but not all the other assets. They didn't go in and buy the former company, correct? They just bought the name and logo.
They filed what's called an intend to use. So they didn't own the rights, but basically they reserved to be first in line for the rights. And if anyone publicly was going to have them. So at that point, that's all they had. There was nothing they owned. It was. So anyway, it was about. I think it was around the first or second week in October is when XTech and Molded Devices came to terms and said, even though we don't have any play in the AK space, let's work together, and we know each other, and let's make what the world's demanded. The U.S. make, and that's an AK magazine with a stainless steel spring and a field strippability paired with a forever level of robust quality, extremely compatible, and most importantly, stainless steel feed lips. Other manufacturers have said this narrative that makes the magazine weaker, and yet Russia and Bulgaria proved that's not true. And so we thought there's this huge market void. It was a tremendous challenge to do it, but we decided if we were going to do it as a no name in the AK space, we had to check every single box. And
you have to come out swinging.
Yeah. And as you know, the testing we did on that product was tremendous.
That's an understatement. That was an understatement. Guys, I came into this. I don't quite remember when we went out to the desert, but it was around springtime 18, I believe, right?
Yep. It was March, April. I think it was either March or April.
You had called me not long after SHOT, not this past year, but the year prior. And that's when we started having this conversation about blowing up a mountain of plastic. And we're getting there. That's, like I said, this is a complex thing. So we're at a point where you guys XTech is starting to look at developing an AK magazine with intent of Molded Devices being the actual manufacturer to kind of make up where US Palm left off, sort of. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Okay.
So, yep. So we didn't know about the only thing we knew about any trademarks was that the US Palm trademark had lapsed. We did not know about, it's not like you get a sudden, like, ping, the world knows, there's thousands of trademarks every day filed, right? So, and we had actually been in communication with Century, which we have documented in writing. So, so we did not know about the even pending, intend to uses they had filed on their name and logo. We went to NASGW. We had a banner up of the magazine. I don't think we had a banner of the grip. The idea of NASGW was, before we start spending an incredibly high amount of money, creating a new magazine, what will people pay for it? What features does it need? Are all our assumptions right that we've kind of deduced from talking with our network and reading, things like forums and Facebook and all kind of stuff. So we had nothing ready to sell. We didn't have anything to offer. XTech never had anything until we started selling the end of July that we could sell as XTech, and we go to NASW. I actually meet with Peter Leach and Tim Self of Century. That's where I met Tim Self the first time at Century. They say nothing about the trademarks. None of us ever recall seeing anyone in a Century shirt or anyone we recognize from Century around our booth. They're on the opposite side of the hall of the show. And now they're showing pictures and giving this dialogue that we used US Palm, and that was, that's something we did knowingly is insane. I mean, is insane. And it's absolutely malicious. And
so they're alleging that at that time you were leveraging the US Palm name in efforts to gain business.
Correct. We had nothing to sell. We were, the only thing we could do at that time was put feelers out there and confirm, yep, check the box, we're on the right track. We knew nothing about their filing of the intend to use. As far as all we had known is US Palm was, a dodo bird. It was gone, nothing there. There was no one to, on that end. So what they're referencing is on our price list at that show, we have the word, in parentheses, former US Palm magazine, former US Palm grip, something like that. And they originally posted it on their Facebook page now, more recently, where it didn't show the date, didn't give any context, tried to give some summation that we did something ill. How we actually found out, and this is where you come in the picture without even knowing it. So how I personally met with Century at this event. What I was told is that Century had big plans for molded devices starting in January of 2018. They wanted to work together. The market was slow, but they're going to want to take a bunch of products. And I just went, okay, at that point, again, it's, who was culpable for that fraud or misrepresentation, whatever word you want to use that we went through. So now Molded Devices still has 8,400 plus or minus magazine components that they're left with, that, US Palm gave the PO that was much larger than that and didn't just involve, range magazine components, but US Palm had taken a lot of the components and, some stuff was in different phases. So I was, as Molded Devices, trying to find a buyer for those components. And
okay.
Which was not easy. But there's a gentleman that I met that was a young distributor. He still is out there. And I reached out to him and he said, yeah, I'm interested, and your price makes sense. Let's do it. Subject to, me not having anything to worry about with these products marked US Palm. And I said, sure, I get it. Call your attorney, do your thing. And he called me shortly after and then followed up with an email. And that's how we, as XTech or Molded Devices, found out that Century had filed something. So, 2 months before they had filed this, didn't say a word in meeting us. And then we find out through a buyer that's going, it's not worth it. Century's filed suits before. It's just not worth it to a one-time buy of these obsolete magazines to deal with. So now we're sitting there going, what are they really up to? You know, they try and put on a good face, like they want to work with us. We already had this history of them bringing in our competitors to our facility. You know, who is Century and where do they sit? And so,
and during this, as this is starting to sort of ramp up to this lawsuit, you guys were still working on and developing what is now the Mag 47. Is that correct?
correct. So the real development began, like I said, we kind of shook hands early October. Where we really dove into it full steam was November, December.
Okay, so sort of leading up to this, and then January, you meet with this guy. You're trying to offload US Palm marked inventory in various stages, components of magazines, and
so we actually spoke with him when I was still at the show is when that conversation started, the end of October.
Okay.
So where this comes
at a certain point, this guy says, look, I talked to my attorneys and Century had filed for this stuff. Look, I can't go through with this. And you guys are like, what? Okay.
Yeah. Like they're playing nice to our face. Like they want to be friends and, you know, no heads up. And so, you know, where it goes from there is there's a meeting, you know, requests that we receive, you know, from the time that Molded Devices even took the molds to the time of any demand. Century had requested samples. We even bought finished goods samples from a vendor to send them samples that we knew we had made. You know, we were playing nice, trying to, you know, again, trying to make plastic parts as Molded Devices. And, you know, for me, you know, it's, you know, I have a day job, how I feed my family, and I have XTech when you know, my loyalties are mutual, even though, you know, I have to do both. So anyway, so Century comes to town with the same two gentlemen that they request a meeting, and they come to town December 27th, 2017. That meeting, more or less, I'll say on a high level, you know, verbal back and forth. We had required them to sign a non-disclosure agreement to come into our building. We're already very suspect about a request for a business meeting 2 days after Christmas. And when they got there, the two parties that arrived on behalf of Century would not actually sign the non-disclosure. So the meeting didn't go well. And they made it very clear they only wanted one thing, and that was exclusivity. And they didn't want to, you know, look at any deals where the parties that were out money were made whole. So there was nothing there. So we made an offer to them as Molded Devices to provide to them a low-end AK magazine. They hadn't seen any new designs at that point. They weren't familiar with it, but again, you know, we're trying to sell plastic parts. So at that time, we did make an offer to them to allow them to kind of have an exclusive on the low-end variant of any AK magazine we made, which nothing like that's out there from XTech or anything to reference now. So they said they'd think about it. Next communication we got was January 16th. And this is when, right before SHOT Show happens, their lawyers, you know, say that they intend to buy US Palm, therefore Molded Devices needs to hand over everything now. And we're like, are you serious? I've never seen such a thing about someone's going to intend to buy someone.
Hey, I'm thinking about buying that Rolex.
Yeah,
can I have it?
It's a little bit, you know, the first I've ever seen that kind of category of letter. And so then, you know, so that's January 16th is the threat comes. Now, here's where things publicly really, really, really work against Century expressing anything but what this implies. January 23rd, 2018, Century announces the hiring of a guy named Bill Barrett. Now, Bill, I've actually heard fairly good things about in the industry, but Bill's prior role was the operations manager of Tapco. Bill is hired as the VP of Firearms Accessories. This is Century's own press release. So they hired Bill to run US Palm when they didn't yet, quote, buy US Palm. All they had done is file and intend to use on the two names. So around, I think it was around mid-February, there's several exchanges between Molded Devices and Century's attorneys. And what's settled on is, you know, we can't find a buyer for these magazine parts. No one wants them. We don't want to invest you know, another 5 figures in buying springs and putting them together and for a product that no one seems to want. And Century's made it clear that if we sell anything with the US Palm name and logo on it, they're going to, you know, harass us, even though they were made far before. So it's all, you know, trademarks are date sensitive, right? These products were made far before they're made in like 2016, 2015, if I recall. Century's filings were in 17, and they still were just, you know. So we just decided, you know, we're going to destroy them. And that's the day I called you. And that day was, I think, like early February or something like that, maybe mid-February. And I was visiting our Riverside, California plant, and the president of my group, I think you met Tom, great guy, and he went, you know, maybe we should get a wood chipper or something. Like let's really destroy these things and I'm like, I'll call John. And you took that to a totally different level, which was awesome. Let's call your John Howard, right?
So before we get into that story, it is about halftime, and this is the time when I give a big shout out to our sponsors tonight. If you carry a spare magazine on you, and you should be looking at a Neomag. It is a magnetic pocket clip that holds your magazine discreetly and gives you easy access without digging around in your pocket, holds the mag, hides it from view. You don't have to do it on your belt, whatever. And Neomag is the place to get that product. It's theneomag.com. And we have a new code for them. This is a code many of you will be familiar with. It's TGC10 for 10% off anything over at theneomag.com. And I also want to say thank you to the TGC Patreon supporters. Of course, you guys know the $1 Army is a thing. If you just want to throw a buck our way to say thanks for whatever we do, that is awesome. But if you want to get a little bit deeper into things and join up on the Gun of the Month Club, the $5 Force is the way to do that. And what we do, the Gun of the Month Club, we give away a gun, at least one, every month back to the people that support us on Patreon. This month, we are giving away a Ruger PC9. It's a takedown 9mm carbine that takes both Ruger, and we have the adapter for Glock magazines. It comes with that, has sights. It's a fluted threaded barrel. This thing is rad. It's actually right behind me. You guys may be able to see that are watching live. So if you want to get in on that giveaway, $5 a month, we'll do that over at patreon.com/The Gun Collective. That is our way to give back to you guys. Now, I'm going to explain how I see this portion of things. So I get a phone call from Jeremy here, and he says, hey, we have some things to destroy. And I said, okay. And he says, well, we're thinking about a wood chipper. We're thinking maybe a couple pounds of binary explosive. And I'm like, okay, I get it. You know, and I believe what Jeremy first intended was me to maybe help facilitate filming it for them, or I'm not really exactly sure what was in his mind at the time. But I said, I have an idea. Instead of doing, I don't know, 10 pounds of this stuff and just kind of going, let's set a world record. So being that the owner of USA Chemical Supply, it's now known as Spicomite. Being that John Howard, the owner of that company, is a good friend of mine, I called him up and I said, hey, dude, do you want to go blow some stuff up in the desert? And he said, OMG, how much? I said, let's go set a record. So it was at that point that we decided the correct amount of binary explosives to use was 650 pounds. And, you know, from there, it turned into the video that you guys have probably seen and hopefully seen, where you can see such things as magazines being turned into mulch. You can see things as magazines going into low orbit. You can see the Earth being cracked. And you can also see Charlie Melton making an 800-yard shot with a badass rifle. I mean, guys, the slow-mo alone is worth watching that video. That was a ton of fun. So that ended up happening a couple months later. But while all this is going on, Century is now coming at XTech, even after trying to do some sort of partnership with Molded Devices. Is that correct?
So the actual XTech mention for the first time did not occur. It was actually as a result of the evidentiary video, the redacted version of the video we did for them. That's when the XTech conversation started. So
okay, so
all the conversations it was kind of laying low. Like basically Molded Devices like, look, you got nothing. We're not going to use the US Palm name or logo. Like, you know, we're fine. We'll destroy them. And so there's really nothing to talk about, right?
Right. And you had said to me, and we at the time we were kind of playing it a certain way, and that's why in that video you'll see me say, because of some legal stuff, a very vague way to describe what was going on leading up to this. You said, look, we're just going to destroy these, and it's not going to be an issue anymore.
Yeah.
And that's kind of after that, after we did this, you send over a video. Hey, look, here's the evidence of us literally destroying these to parts that are not usable in any fashion. And that's when they turn their sights onto XTech, correct?
Correct. So in May, there was a draft lawsuit naming Molded Devices and XTech as defendants, if I recall. So it's yep. So May 30th, we received a demand letter and unfiled lawsuit saying if we ever published a video, if we ever did a series of things, that's the first time they brought up the word trade dress, if I recall. And at that point, I had seen the communication between Molded Devices and Century, and Molded Devices came from an effort of good faith, and we caved to the point where we thought it was beyond even reasonable of having to even destroy these mags. But corporate world is corporate world, and people do like to try and avoid lawsuits. So, but I saw every time Molded Devices operated in good faith and gave them something, they just came back with more. So for me as XTech's decision maker, once we started getting threats, there was only one play, and that was nothing. And yeah, truth be told,
you can't move on that.
Yep, we're not gonna communicate at all. We're not gonna, we're just gonna do our thing. If they're gonna sue us, they're gonna sue us, but we're not playing games. We're not gonna bow down to threats. So, we received the first official threat to XTech May 30th of 2018. That was also the last threat or any sent communication that Century did to Molded Devices. So, at that point, the way I see it is they went from sizable company, 8 plants, hundreds and hundreds of employees, to, really in their mind, they see XTech as a guy. And that's why they're suing me now personally, my wife and the company, not the other partners, not Molded Devices, not even Tango Down, even though we're just, they're suing me for the Tango Down grip when, so I'm not suggesting, I don't want any of my friends to get sued, but it just, to me, it shows their motives very clear. They think they can take me out, and they can have their way with the market. Well, unfortunately, they haven't figured it out. That's not how the story ends. So that's kind of
this is so juicy.
Yeah,
this is fantastic.
I mean, and then you get the whole Tango Down angle, right? And I'll try and go kind of quick on this.
Right, so hold on. So let's recap where we've gotten so far. So it starts off, US Palm is contracting Molded Devices to manufacture products. At a certain point, and we don't need to be specific about dates here, at a certain point, that goes south. US Palm can no longer pay debts owed. At a later point, Molded Devices takes possession through legal means of the tooling to manufacture said products. All while this is taking place, Century Arms is looking at US Palm, kind of taking over that brand, not necessarily buying the business, but taking it over, kind of rebrand, I don't know, giving birth to it again, whatever we're calling that. I don't really know. The whole while they're trying to also do something because of that with Molded Devices. They're trying to kind of work on a deal, and then at a certain point, you guys are like, look, look, we don't want any BS. We're going to go ahead and destroy any remaining product so that there is no issue concerning US Palm, which Century said they intended to use. And then when you hand over an evidentiary video showing that these magazines, this 8,400 plus or minus, magazines, components, etc., were destroyed. And I'm telling you guys, I saw it with my own 2 eyes. We gave birth to a Diamond magazine. Go watch the video. We gave birth to a Diamond magazine. But seriously, you can't fire an AK mag with a shard of plastic in the mag well. You can't do it. We should have tried that, Jeremy. We should have tried. That would have been missed opportunity. So we blew them up. We made a video. We had a lot of fun, and in the process, XTech said, "Hey, look, we destroyed these. Here is, we at the same time, you're also releasing the Mag 47." Century Arms sees this taking place and then turns their sights onto XTech, says, "No, you can't do that. That is ours. That design is too similar." And a new term comes to life in my brain called trade dress, which is something I want you to try and explain. You know what? I have a quote here. I reached out to Century, and I want to make this clear. My goal here is not to slam Century for this. I gave them an opportunity. I reached out to Chip Hunnicut, their head of marketing. We've done some work with them. We have a video out there on the Canic TP9, which is one of their brands. Some of the products that they bring in, I think, are decent products. I like the Canic line. But the response to the question about trade dress from Chip was, I said, "What is trade dress?" He says, "Trade dress refers to the image and overall appearance of a product, aka you're copying our crap, bro." I had never heard that term before. Jeremy, is that what you understand trade dress as?
It is correct, as a 1-sentence deal. Yeah,
okay.
It's the packaging, product, likeness, looks, etc.
So they're claiming that you have taken the U.S. Palm magazine that they somehow acquired but didn't acquire through this I don't know, this kind of soap opera of years of things happening. So they didn't actually buy U.S. Palm, didn't actually buy the assets, but somehow, because they resurrected the brand name, are claiming ownership of failed dealings with molded devices. And
so they claim now that they did buy Palm in March of 2018. So
okay,
yeah,
okay, so they did actually buy that, but the tooling was already gone, so was no longer an asset. But you guys, XTech, had released a new magazine which had somewhat similar, in my eyes, ridges, which has been used on magazines for a very long time. Waffle mags are not new. Waffle mags are not new to the world by this point, right? So they are claiming that that was a significant thing and that you guys had copied them.
So what they're in, so specifically, the lawsuit's about a total of 4 things.
Okay.
Just to really, really hit it, right? So here's a U.S. Palm magazine. So we're going to go straight, like, my daughter would call this savage, but that's what we're going to do. so
what you have in your hands is a U.S. Palm magazine
from back when U.S. Palm sold.
So this is what you guys, in terms of molded devices, were making for U.S. Palm.
That's correct.
Okay, and you guys had the tooling for this product.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
That's what molded devices did.
Okay, so what you have in your hand, U.S. Palm. Okay, show us.
Yep. So what they're claiming is, so you can see this one that you couldn't take it apart, right? That was a big thing. But what they're suing for is the tread pattern and the waffle, claiming it's unique, non-functional, and has secondary meaning to U.S. Palm. And therefore, by buying U.S. Palm, Century now controls that. Now, it cannot be functional is one key part. So there's numerous ways that Century knows there's no suit here. One is, if you read the U.S. Palm part descriptions when they sold, that can still be found online. You can read the original press releases when they released this product years ago. All of them describe the waffle and tread pattern as functional. Another issue with their lawsuit is talked about the waffle and tread pattern.
Identical. And what you're holding up. So for the people listening to this on podcast, Jeremy was holding up an AK-47 magazine, but now is holding up an AR-15 magazine with a identical pattern on that magazine.
And that is the Tango Down magazine. So
I did not know that.
So the design was always owned by Tango Down. Tango Down never sold the design. He was owed a royalty. He stopped being paid a royalty. That's when US Palm came to me. So where Tango Down and I connect now is basically we have some things in common, right? Of who we've been wronged by. But in addition, you know, when we discovered as Molded Devices, you know, we had Jeff come in and obviously we always knew the products were connected. I mean, when you look at these and if you know about the Arc Mag, you know there's some connection, right? And then you start Googling
extremely similar
releases of this, and you see everyone go designed by Tango Down. Even US Palm used to describe it as, you know, proprietary materials to Tango Down. There's a very blatant connection to Tango Down. So we got Tango Down's testimony right before we released the Mag 47 in late July. He offered to help, came in, didn't ask for a thing from us, just said, look, this is wrong. I am glad to do whatever I can do to help. So it was at that time that you know, Molded Devices, again, as that hat, decided to bring the grip back through Tango Down. And, you know, he was the original designer. Those that ever followed the US Palm grips closely, there was the storage, and then the storage went away. Well, the storage was patented by Tango Down. That's the only reason the storage ever went away, as far as I'm aware. So now it's kind of a cool, like, hey, you know, you have this original designer of the products. You have this new company that fill in all the gaps and made an entirely new magazine that did all these things. And they're publicly, you know, working together to do some cool stuff in the AK community.
Okay. So at that point, you're going, you had somehow connected with Tango Down, who was actually the original designer, was supposed to be. So you reached out to him. So they were supposed to be getting licensing monies from US Palm that at one point stopped when US Palm came to you, unbeknownst to you. You didn't know this was what was taking place. So then you said, hey, Tango Down, let's work together. And let's resurrect what was the US Palm grip is now going to be the Tango Down grip because you owned it all along.
Correct. So Molded Devices and Tango Down. All XTech is involved in the Tango Down grip is we are one of many dealers. That's it. We're not a manufacturer. We're not anything on the other hand. XTech is simply just one of many dealers. We are getting sued by Century for the grip as XTech and only XTech, not Molded Devices, not anyone else. But all XTech is one of, I believe now, dozens of dealers, and a quick Google search will show you how many dealers there are, but no one else is getting sued for that grip. But
this is really, really interesting, man. So we've got a new magazine, we've got a resurrected grip, and we've got lawsuits, plural at this point, or is this just one lawsuit?
So the first story for another day, we can go into some fun details of kind of what led up to on that end. But so lawsuit wise, their first suit they filed against us, being XTech, was the last week in September 2018. Okay. They filed a lawsuit against us in Florida. They did not serve us the lawsuit. So we did not have, you know, what legally is considered step 2 of making a lawsuit a lawsuit. You have to file with the court and you have to serve the other party. They did not even attempt to serve it. In fact, they mailed us the lawsuit, a demand letter, and at the bottom of the demand letter, it says, we're choosing not to serve you. But they sent out a press release and a mass email announcing that they deemed us as infringing and that they were suing us.
So they said they weren't suing you directly to your face in the letter. They're saying, oh, no. We're choosing not to serve you here, but everybody else, hey, look over here. We're suing these guys.
And you ask me, you know, why does someone do that? That is to position. That is to try and scare. That is, you can refer to that as peacocking. You know, is even a term that a lot of attorneys like to use.
Sure.
But really, it was, you know, trying to, you know, scare us / notify the market that, you know, we're bad and try and stop our sales. So that was, again, last week in September. October 1st comes around. The grip is released, unbeknownst to them. They find out last minute, just like the rest of the world did. The grip is a Tango Down product when it comes out. So the same day, and you can find this all public, the same day the Tango Down grip is released, October 1st, 2018, the Century lawsuit against XTech is voluntarily dismissed without prejudice in Florida. So at that point, XTech has two options. Option number one is what we did, and that is nothing. The suit, they're done for now. Let it go.
It's dead in the water.
Yeah.
What would have been your other option to
Option number two would be go to Florida, hire a counsel there, which we hadn't even done yet. We had local counsel here, and our main counsel, which is still in Chicago, and then push on the courts to do a dismissal with prejudice, which Century, like a dead fish on the shore, could have flopped over and suddenly, we're where we are anyway. So case goes away. We do Red October. Title sponsor that. Start getting some really great momentum in the AK community. Then it was about October 23rd, if I recall. I'm here in this house, and we live in a very quiet, gated community in Arizona. And I was actually out in a meeting in the community, our little HOA board here, and process server was sent to my house. We knew nothing about anything pending. We weren't notified. Our statutory agent wasn't. We didn't get emails. We didn't get FedEx like all the other communication. Statutory agent jumps out in front of my wife as she's done walking our dog one night. And the side, again, a gated community. That's how they decided to play this. So, process server shows up. Anyway, we deal with that. I accept service. So we're obviously now they're trying to make this a personal matter, making sure that it's affecting my home. So from there, we go to bed that night after a long talk. Obviously a lot of strains put on the family when something like that happens.
Yeah, you can't have that. You can't, this is supposed to be an industry full of stand-up individuals, right? Like that's how we sort of represent ourselves. And to stoop to a level where we're sneaking into gated communities where families are safe, and we're kind of almost not necessarily attacking, but surprising and jumping out and kind of accosting a little bit somebody's family at night. Like that's really, really crappy tactics.
Well, and we're a business. I mean, we have a statutory agent that, by the way, they served 2 days later. They have our email, they have our address.
But they decided to come to your home because that was meant to ruffle feathers, I'm sure.
Well, and it didn't end there, unfortunately. So I wake up, the next morning after a long night, and just talking through things. Obviously, that when the process server jumped out, it was my daughter, my wife, and our dog, and so the whole family was a little rattled, right? So anyway, we get through that, and the next morning we find out that Century had linked the lawsuit to a mass email and press release, and the lawsuit contained our personal address in it. So of course, as someone owning a firearms-related business, that's hugely stressful, and I saw that as 100% maliciously motivated, and quite frankly pathetic. So
they send out a huge email talking about yet another lawsuit.
Correct.
With your home address.
So it had a link to it that said, see the claim here. You click on the claim, first paragraph, there's my home address. So I hire counsel. Immediately, our move is to get my address removed, get the case sealed, which it is now. So they didn't even fight that. We had, my attorney recommended we send a letter to their attorney. Their attorney, of course, denies all malicious intentions, but agrees to take my address down immediately and seal the case. So that's how this whole thing started. Now we're down the road in the suit. We've announced that we as XTech have full rights to the Tango Down design. We've now, we've licensed, so we own the design, have rights to the design that Century doesn't, because US Palm never had them. And Century's aware of all this, and so we're fighting for motion to dismiss right now. Actually, the fight's done. All the fancy words. Century's already changed their complaint to try and survive the motion to dismiss on writing the right words. Sadly, a motion dismissed cannot consider most evidence. So, we're waiting on the judge right now. I mean, the case could be tossed completely. I hope it is. I'm really, so we're in a big waiting game right now, but, so it either jumps into discovery and then trials. The next 18 months of our life is, them trying to disrupt our lives as much as they can, or this is over. So we'll see.
Okay. So the long and short of it is that Century came after you, and you suspect that this is because you are a smaller target and easier target than molded devices. I want to read out a couple more quotes here from Century. So I asked, what exactly is Century suing for? So Century Arms alleges that consumers recognize the waffle and tread pattern on the U.S. Palm magazine as a trademark, indicating the magazine is a genuine U.S. Palm product. XTech Tactical recently began selling an AK-47 magazine, having a strikingly similar waffle and tread pattern that, according to the complaint, will confuse customers into thinking that they are buying a U.S. Palm magazine. U.S. Palm has established a favorable position among consumers for AK-47 magazines and welcomes fair competition into the marketplace by mimicking the appearance of the U.S. Palm magazine. Century Arms alleges XTech Tactical has sought to bypass fair practices and intentionally mislead customers. Interesting. I said, what do you say to those that claim Century is bullying XTech? It's an easy comment to throw out to redirect attention from a serious legal matter. We welcome fair and honest competition in the marketplace and look forward to presenting our case in federal court. If that is a nothing comment, I know nothing. Boys and girls, that was a whole lot of nothing for that comment. I said, what is the ideal outcome for this? That was a question I asked them. A judgment in our favor that ultimately protects consumers by ensuring that by ensuring that what they identify as a U.S. Palm product is the genuine article, even though U.S. Palm died on the vine. Why put out press releases regarding the suit? What is the intent with that? The press release was intended to confirm consumer inquiries about magazines that were confusingly similar to the well-known U.S. Palm magazine. I suspect there was a little bit of confusion initially, but those questions were then answered. And at the same time, the trade dress issue is specifically about non-functional things. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so it's about non-functional things, and I think we've established, at least in my eyes, that they are functional according to U.S. Palm originally. So suddenly they are no longer functional later on down the line. I think this whole thing is really, really interesting. Century has sued many a brand that was smaller and seemingly with malicious intent. I do not know that. I cannot confirm such a thing, but it seems that way on the surface. I think this whole thing is very interesting, especially the dropped lawsuit initially, then a second lawsuit putting your personal information out there, you the whole time not balking at any of this BS, allowing these people to embarrass themselves to a certain extent. I think this is a very interesting suit in general, and I think the audience, while this is, as some of our live audience has described, a bit convoluted, we agree. We agree that this is convoluted. This is an absurd thing. So here we are. The lawsuit has the second lawsuit, correct, has not been dropped. Is that going on right now? Where are we at with the current lawsuit? We're short on time, so I want to try and wrap this up.
Still going on, nearing $100,000 in legal fees so far. XTech's paid, waiting on a judge to rule on a motion to dismiss.
So you are trying to have the case thrown the F out with good reason. You've spent $100,000 trying to fight this nonsense. And boy, oh boy, I wish you luck in that effort. I personally don't. I think the tactics utilized by Century the whole way were not ideal. I don't want to come across like I'm
Yeah, I get it.
taking sides here, but the reality is they were dickheads about the way they did this. Putting your personal information out there is low, and the tactics were really just not great. And I don't know where this is going to go, but it seems like XTech has persevered, at least to this point.
Absolutely. I mean, I've been through a lot. You know, my company's been through a lot. This isn't our first go around. This isn't my only business, and you know, we're going to get there. I mean, the small company versus big company, you know, deal is, you know, the first question any educated party makes in the legal system goes, what does a big party have to gain? If you think someone's, you know, you think a big party's involved, you know, and a small party's involved and they're teamed up, well, who do you typically try and go after? You try and add on any big partners, because if you believe you have a valid case, you want what? You want money, right? You want damages. So to only pursue the smallest party involved, to me, is a very clear sign that my opponent believes they have absolutely no case and no chance in winning, and that the outcome's going to be in their mind, because no small party's ever seen it all the way through. It's going to be a settlement and a non-disclosure. And, you know, unfortunately for them, or fortunately for small parties in the market, you know, we will not have this case, you know, just go down as another where evidence is destroyed and there's nothing done. I mean, I'm really trying to send a message, not just for me. I mean, we're in the business of trying to make money. You know, my goals in life are to give security and freedom to my family, leave a legacy for my daughter. But this particular act, to me, the reason we're standing so publicly and so strongly is I am trying to give a playbook. We're trying to give a playbook to small businesses of how to take down a giant when they're bringing these baseless suits. Century's not alone in bringing these type of suits. And we're hoping Congress will pay attention and laws will change, but that's our stance.
So a comment actually from our editor, Izzy, he says, XTech's next ad campaign when all this is over is our mags will outlast a century. Zing! That is funny.
You know,
very funny.
We've got a lot of supporters, and we can't tell everyone how thankful we are for the guys that supported us. And, you know, and again, you know, from what we did at SHOT, you know, we're not here to be backhanded about anything we say. I think you know that about me, John. If I'm going to say something, I'm going to say it direct. I'm going to do it with class and dignity, but I'm not going to be indirect. You know, so we welcome all competition. So Chip, if you know, if he wants to say the statement, he can say the statement. But you know, let's go. You know, let's put our mags head to head. Let's let the mags win, and same goes for Magpul and you know, and anyone else that wants to come in the market and make mags. Let's truly welcome competition and see what products win. Make sure whoever brings the best value for that consumer and can reach that consumer, that's who wins. So
that's a bold claim, and I think we had Mr. Gunziger was out here actually watching live, and I would love to see somebody like him. Maybe we can do that. I know we have some torture tests lined up with these magazines, and I am not going to pretend to be an expert in AKs. I'm not an expert. I will leave that to guys like Brandon and Mr. Guns and Gear and AK operators. I'll leave it to those guys.
Right.
I will let them, you know, kind of lead the charge on that. But what I find very interesting here is that you seem to have checked a lot of boxes for what people wanted in an AK magazine, and you continue to do that with future offerings. The California magazine was released today.
Correct. Yeah.
We record this on a Thursday, and that magazine, which is a California special with the California badge, that actually came out today. Let's end on what that is. Hey, Mr. Guns and Gear, testing is already done. Stay tuned. There you go. There you go, boys and girls. Shout out to him. Great guy, knows what he's talking about. So tell us about this new magazine before we wrap up.
Yep. So what we came out with today, and we have a couple more coming in the coming weeks, but it's a 1030 version of what's already been on the market. So it's state compliant, all 50 states. It is field strippable. If you take the blocker out, it will no longer function due to reduced spring. If you do move to a free state, we will sell you a full-length spring button, spring and spring button for $5. So if you ever get a chance to come out of those states or your state laws change, we're praying they do. You can take your 10-round magazine into a 30-round magazine at that time. Make sure to follow your laws. But this one, what's cool about it is we actually decided we're going to donate $1 of every magazine off our website, and that was a big part in doing it, to Gun Owners of America to fight for those behind, restricted state lines. The name Commufornia is intended absolutely to draw attention. The reason I call it the Commufornia Special is to try and rally those behind state lines. The last thing we wanted to do is come out with a product that's good enough for those behind state lines where they quiet versus rally and bond together. The decisive, or how divisive the industry is, and with these different groups, we just want to support those that are fighting for our rights. So that's really the idea behind the name, is to try and go, hey, let's go do something. Let's fight together and take steps.
And I think it's great that you're encouraging people to be active, because that is something that we like to do on a regular basis. Tell people to get off their ass and go be a part of their own rights for the future. So guys, I hope that you were able to track along. This is a very complex story, like I said at the top of this, and it's not over yet.
No.
It's absolutely not over yet. Jeremy is a friend, and we will continue to update you guys as things move along. When this is settled, if it's settled, if there's some other lawsuit, we will continue to update you guys on the progress here, and keep an eye out for tests of AK mags, because that will be super duper interesting. Of course, be sure to check out XTech Tactical on every platform. You guys are on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube.
Just on Reddit. So that's the three. So
okay. So just punch in XTech Tactical and go digging. That's what you guys do anyway, right? You're just going to go digging on the platform that you want to find them. So do that. Jeremy, thanks for joining us tonight. It's been enlightening.
My pleasure. I appreciate you having me on, and we'll keep being transparent with consumers as much as we possibly can. So
hell yeah, man. People love that. Yeah. And they deserve it, to be fair. They deserve it. Yeah, shout out again to our sponsors tonight, Neomag, and of course the TGC Patreon supporters. We love you guys for supporting us directly, and of course supporting Neomag. And guys, that's going to be it tonight. I appreciate everybody that was watching live. I appreciate you if you're listening in your vehicle, going to work, doing stuff around the house, whatever you do when you listen to this. As always, thank you all for watching. We'll see you very, very soon.